I stood on the side of the road, my heart pounding as I watched the police car speed past with its siren blaring. The flashing lights cast eerie shadows on the surrounding trees, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Just moments before, I'd received a frantic call from the local sheriff's office, informing me that my wife, Kate, had been involved in some kind of altercation and was being taken into custody. Now, through the back window of the police car, I caught a glimpse of her familiar silhouette, and a surge of fear and confusion washed over me. Kate had always been the anchor of our family, steady, loving, and dependable. Seeing her like this, in such a tumultuous and public display, was completely out of character. What had happened to lead her to this point? My mind raced with questions as I hurried to my car, fumbling with the keys in my shaking hands. I needed answers, and I needed them now. The drive to the police station felt interminable. The usually scenic route through our small town now seemed foreboding, each familiar landmark tainted by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. I couldn't shake the image of Kate in that police car, her face pale and drawn, her eyes wide with distress. As I pulled into the station's parking lot, I saw the police cruiser parked near the entrance. I quickly found a spot and rushed inside, my steps echoing in the sterile, fluorescent-lit hallway. The air smelled of antiseptic and anxiety, a stark contrast to the warm, comforting sense of home. At the front desk, a stern-looking officer glanced up as I approached. "I'm here for Kate, my wife," I stammered, my voice barely steady. "She was brought in just a little while ago." The officer's expression softened slightly. "You must be Jack," he said, glancing at a clipboard. "Kate's in the holding area. Follow me." We walked down a series of corridors until we reached a small room with a heavy metal door. The officer unlocked it and gestured for me to enter. Inside, Kate sat on a bench, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes red-rimmed and filled with tears. She looked up as I entered, and the moment our eyes met, I felt a pang of both relief and sorrow. "Jack," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry." I moved to sit beside her, taking her hands in mine. "What happened, Kate?" I asked gently, trying to keep my voice calm despite the turmoil I felt inside. She took a deep breath, and as she began to speak, the story unfolded. A story that would shatter my perception of our life together and set us on a path of pain, betrayal, and ultimately, the hope of redemption. Kate recounted the events that led to her arrest with a mixture of shame and desperation. She explained how the tensions had been building for months at the summer camp where she worked as a counselor. The incident that triggered her arrest had started as a petty argument during a late-night staff meeting. "It was supposed to be a routine meeting," Kate began, her voice wavering. "But things escalated quickly. Mark and I disagreed on how to handle a disciplinary issue with one of the campers. He accused me of being too lenient, and I fired back, saying he was too harsh. Before I knew it, we were shouting at each other in front of everyone." She paused, wiping away tears with the back of her hand. "I should have walked away. I should have just walked away," she muttered, more to herself than to me. As Kate continued, she described how the argument had spilled out into the campgrounds, drawing the attention of other counselors and even some of the campers. Emotions ran high, fueled by exhaustion and the pressures of managing a lively group of children, day in and day out. "Mark and we both lost control," Kate confessed, her voice barely audible. "I don't even remember how it happened. But suddenly we were in each other's faces, yelling and pushing. Someone called the police. The next thing I knew, I was in handcuffs." I listened in stunned silence, trying to reconcile the woman sitting beside me with the image of the loving wife and dedicated counselor I had known. The camp where Kate had worked had always been a source of joy for her, a place where she felt fulfilled and valued. Now, it seemed like a battleground where tensions had simmered beneath the surface, waiting to erupt. "Why didn't you tell me?" I finally asked, my voice breaking with a mix of hurt and confusion. Kate looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "I was ashamed, Jack. Ashamed of what happened, ashamed of disappointing you. I thought if I could just deal with it on my own, I could make it go away." I reached out and took her hands in mine, offering what comfort I could. "We're in this together, Kate," I said softly. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." As we sat there, the weight of Kate's confession hung heavy in the air between us. The road ahead seemed uncertain and fraught with challenges, but in that moment, I knew that our love and commitment would be tested like never before. The days following Kate's arrest were a blur of emotions and unanswered questions. I struggled to make sense of the fragments of information I pieced together from police reports and reluctant conversations with Kate's colleagues. Each detail painted a picture of a side of Kate I had never known, a side that had been hidden from me, perhaps even from herself. I couldn't shake the image of Kate sitting in that stark room at the police station, her confession hanging heavily in the air between us. She had admitted to an affair with another counselor from the children's camp where she worked, a man named Mark. The revelations cut deep, leaving wounds that seemed to throb with each passing hour. One afternoon, a few days after Kate's arrest, I received a call from Mark. His voice was hesitant yet determined as he asked to meet face to face. Against my better judgment, I agreed, needing to hear his side of the story firsthand. We met at a quiet coffee shop on the outskirts of town. Mark sat across from me, his hands clasped tightly around a steaming cup of coffee. His eyes betrayed a mix of guilt and defiance as he began to speak. "I never meant for any of this to happen," Mark started, his voice barely above a whisper. "Kate and I, it happened." His words grated against my raw nerves, but I forced myself to listen. Mark explained how he and Kate had grown close during the long hours spent organizing camp activities and counseling troubled kids. Their relationship had started innocently enough, with shared laughter and camaraderie, but somewhere along the way, boundaries blurred and feelings intensified. "I care about Kate," Mark insisted, his gaze pleading for understanding. "But I never wanted to hurt you or your family." His apology fell flat in the face of my anger and hurt. I demanded to know how long it had been going on, how they had managed to keep it hidden from everyone, especially me. Mark's answers were vague, filled with half-truths and excuses that only fueled my frustration. Leaving the coffee shop, I felt a mix of numbness and simmering rage. How could Kate and Mark betray me like this? How long had they been lying to me, pretending that everything was normal while carrying on behind my back? That evening, I confronted Kate again, armed with the painful details I had extracted from Mark. She sat on the edge of our bed, her face pale and haunted. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," Kate repeated, her voice trembling. "I love you, Jack, but I lost sight of us." Her words struck a nerve, piercing through the haze of anger clouding my thoughts. Kate's tears were genuine, her regret palpable. Yet the wounds of betrayal ran deep, and forgiveness felt like an impossible distance away. In the days that followed, Kate and I attended counseling sessions together, desperate to salvage what remained of our shattered marriage. The sessions were tense, filled with uncomfortable silences and painful revelations. Yet, amidst the turmoil, there was a glimmer of hope, a flicker of determination to rebuild what had been broken. As we navigated the rocky terrain of distrust and heartache, I clung to the fragile hope that someday we might find our way back to each other, to a place where honesty and love could prevail over the shadows of betrayal that threatened to tear us apart. Kate's confession shook me to the core. She spoke haltingly, her words heavy with guilt and regret. "It started innocently," she began, her gaze fixed on her trembling hands. "Mark and I, we became close during the summer camp sessions. He was always there, helping out with the kids, making everyone laugh. I guess I found myself drawn to him." Her voice wavered, and she paused to collect herself. I sat there, struggling to comprehend what I was hearing. Images flashed through my mind. Kate and Mark, sharing moments I never knew about, their laughter echoing through the campfire nights she had once described to me so vividly. "I never meant for it to go this far," Kate continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was just friendship at first, but then things changed. We started spending more time together after hours, when everyone else had gone home. It felt exciting, like I was rediscovering a part of myself I thought was lost." Her words cut through me like a knife. The woman I thought I knew so well had a whole other life, hidden just out of sight. Anger, sadness, and a profound sense of betrayal warred within me. How could she do this to us? To our family? "Why didn't you tell me?" The words escaped my lips before I could stop them, raw with hurt. Kate's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared, Jack. Scared of losing you, of losing everything we built together. Mark and I, we both knew it was wrong, but we couldn't seem to stop." I sat back, feeling numb. The room felt smaller, suffocating with the weight of our shattered trust. Every memory of our life together seemed tainted now, overshadowed by this revelation. "What now, Kate?" I asked quietly, my voice hollow. She looked at me, desperation etched on her face. "I don't know, Jack. I don't know if you can forgive me, but I want to try. I want us to try." Her words hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty. Part of me wanted to walk away, to escape this pain that now defined us. But another part, a stubborn part, clung to the love we once shared, unwilling to let it go without a fight. We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity, grappling with the wreckage of our marriage. Outside, the world moved on, oblivious to the storm raging within the confines of that small, stark room. Finally I spoke, my voice barely audible. "I need time, Kate. I need time to think." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand." And with that I stood up, the weight of the room pressing down on my shoulders. Without another word, I turned and walked out, leaving Kate behind, alone with her regrets and our uncertain future. As I stepped outside into the cool evening air, I felt adrift, unsure of where to go from here. One thing was certain: our lives would never be the same again. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of Kate's confession hung heavy between us. We moved through our daily routines like strangers occupying the same space, our conversations stilted and laden with unspoken words. I retreated into my work, seeking solace in the familiar rhythms of my job, but the ache in my chest remained constant, a constant reminder of the rift that had torn through our marriage. Kate, too, seemed to be navigating her own emotional turmoil. She attended therapy sessions diligently, returning home each time with eyes swollen from crying and a weariness that mirrored my own. Yet, despite the distance that had grown between us, there were moments, brief, fleeting moments, when I caught a glimpse of the woman I had fallen in love with. In those moments, it was as if the years of love and companionship hadn't been entirely erased by one betrayal. One evening, as I sat in our living room, lost in thought, Kate approached me tentatively. Her expression was a mix of apprehension and determination, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "Jack," she began softly, "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us." I looked up, meeting her gaze for the first time in what felt like an eternity. There was a vulnerability in her eyes that struck a chord within me, a flicker of hope amidst the wreckage of our marriage. "I know I've hurt you deeply," Kate continued, her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. "And I can't begin to apologize enough for the pain I've caused. But I want you to know. I want to fight for us, for our family." Her words hung in the air, a fragile thread connecting us across the vast expanse of our doubts and fears. Part of me wanted to push her away, to shield myself from the possibility of more hurt. But another part, a part that still believed in the vows we had exchanged so many years ago, longed to believe that redemption was possible. "I've been working with the therapist," Kate went on, her voice gaining strength. "Learning how to rebuild trust, how to communicate honestly. I want to show you that I'm committed to making things right." I searched her face, searching for any trace of deception, any hint that this newfound resolve was just another facade. But all I saw was sincerity, raw and unguarded. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I admitted quietly, my voice thick with emotion. "But I want to try." Kate nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I understand, and I'm willing to wait, as long as it takes." We sat in silence once more, the weight of our words hanging between us. Outside, the world continued to turn, indifferent to the fragile hope that flickered within our hearts. In that moment, I realized that our journey was far from over. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges and uncertainties, scars from wounds that may never fully heal. But amidst the pain and the shattered trust, there was a glimmer of something precious, a love that had weathered storms and survived, battered but not broken. And as we sat there, two broken souls reaching tentatively for each other in the darkness, I dared to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, we could find our way back to each other once more. Weeks passed since Kate's heartfelt plea for reconciliation. The tension between us had eased slightly, replaced by a cautious optimism as we navigated the delicate process of rebuilding our marriage. Therapy sessions became a regular part of our routine, providing a structured space for us to confront our emotions and learn how to communicate more openly. One afternoon, we decided to take a walk in the park near our home. It was a crisp autumn day, the leaves rustling underfoot as we strolled along the winding paths. Kate reached for my hand tentatively, and I clasped it in mine, feeling a flicker of warmth amidst the cool breeze. "I've been thinking," Kate began softly, her voice carrying a hint of uncertainty, "about what I need to do to earn back your trust." I nodded, encouraging her to continue. This was uncharted territory for both of us, filled with pitfalls and uncertainties, but I was willing to take the journey if it meant finding our way back to each other. "I want to be more transparent with you," Kate continued earnestly. "No more secrets, no more hidden feelings. I want us to be able to talk about everything, openly and honestly." Her words resonated with me, echoing my own desires for a renewed sense of trust and intimacy. For so long, our relationship had been built on a foundation of shared dreams and mutual respect. Now that foundation had been shaken to its core, and yet here we were, standing together on the precipice of possibility. "I want that too, Kate," I replied quietly, squeezing her hand gently. "But it's going to take time. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight." She nodded solemnly, her eyes searching mine for reassurance. "I know. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, Jack. I love you, and I want us to have a future together." Her vulnerability touched me deeply, reminding me of the strength and resilience that had drawn me to her in the first place. In that moment, I saw a glimmer of the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman who had stood by my side through thick and thin, who had shared my hopes and dreams. As we continued our walk through the park, the weight of our past mistakes began to lift, replaced by a renewed sense of hope and determination. The road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, filled with setbacks and obstacles to overcome. But with each step we took together, hand in hand, I knew that we were forging a path towards healing and reconciliation. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the tranquil park, I felt a sense of peace settle over us, a promise of new beginnings and the possibility of a future filled with love, forgiveness, and redemption. In the weeks that followed our walk in the park, Kate and I began to slowly find our way back to each other. Our conversations grew more candid, our moments together marked by a newfound sense of openness and vulnerability. Therapy continued to play a crucial role in our journey, offering us guidance as we navigated the complexities of rebuilding trust and understanding. One evening, as we sat together in our living room, a sense of quiet contentment settled over us. The soft glow of the lamp illuminated the familiar surroundings, casting shadows that seemed less ominous than before. Kate curled up beside me on the couch, her head resting gently on my shoulder. "I've been thinking about what you said," Kate began softly, breaking the comfortable silence between us. "About rebuilding trust." I turned to look at her, meeting her gaze with a mixture of curiosity and affection. Her eyes held a depth of emotion that mirrored my own, resilience, determination, and a longing for reconciliation. "I want you to know, Jack," Kate continued, her voice steady yet tinged with vulnerability, "that I'm committed to this, to us. I know I hurt you deeply, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." Her words touched a chord within me, stirring feelings that had been buried beneath layers of hurt and uncertainty. I reached out, gently tracing the curve of her cheek with my fingertips. "I believe you, Kate," I replied quietly, my voice filled with a mixture of gratitude and relief. "And I want us to move forward, together." Kate's eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she leaned into my touch, her breath warm against my skin. In that moment, the barriers that had once separated us began to crumble, replaced by a renewed sense of intimacy and connection. As the evening wore on, we talked late into the night, sharing our hopes, fears, and dreams for the future. It was a conversation filled with laughter and tears, moments of raw honesty and quiet understanding. Through it all, we discovered a strength in each other that we hadn't realized was there, a resilience born from the trials we had faced together. In the days and weeks that followed, Kate and I continued to rebuild our relationship brick by brick, navigating the challenges and celebrating the small victories along the way. There were setbacks, moments of doubt and insecurity, but we faced them together with a newfound sense of unity and purpose. and as we stood together on the threshold of a new chapter in our lives, I knew that our journey was far from over. But with Kate by my side, I felt a sense of hope and optimism for the future. A future shaped not only by our past mistakes, but also by our unwavering commitment to love, forgiveness, and the promise of a second chance. Months passed since the pivotal evening in our living room, where Kate and I had reaffirmed our commitment to rebuilding our marriage. The wounds from Kate's betrayal still lingered, occasionally resurfacing in moments of doubt or insecurity. Yet despite the challenges we faced, our bond grew stronger with each passing day. One sunny afternoon, Kate suggested we take a weekend trip to a quaint lakeside cabin, a place where we had spent many happy summers early in our marriage. The idea of returning to familiar grounds felt both comforting and daunting, a test of how far we had come in our journey towards reconciliation. As we drove along the winding country roads, the air filled with the scent of pine and fresh grass, memories of our early years together flooded my mind. The cabin came into view, nestled among towering trees with a view of the serene lake shimmering in the distance. Stepping inside, the cabin felt both familiar and foreign. The rustic charm of the interior, wood-paneled walls, cozy fireplace, and sunlit windows, evoked a sense of nostalgia tinged with bittersweet memories. Kate and I unpacked in silence, each lost in our own thoughts as we settled into the space that had once been a sanctuary for our love. That evening, as we sat by the crackling fire, a sense of peace settled over us. The warmth of the flames cast flickering shadows on the walls, creating a cocoon of intimacy where words flowed more freely than they had in months. "Remember the first time we came here?" Kate murmured, her voice soft with reminiscence. I nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "It feels like a lifetime ago." Kate reached out, her hand finding mine across the expanse of the worn armchair. "I miss those simpler times," she admitted quietly, "when everything seemed so easy between us." I squeezed her hand gently, feeling the weight of her words. "We've been through a lot, Kate," I replied, my voice low with emotion. "But we're still here, together." She met my gaze, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I'm grateful for that," she whispered, "for this second chance." In that moment, surrounded by the quiet solitude of the cabin and the flickering warmth of the fire, I felt a renewed sense of hope for our future. The road ahead would undoubtedly be filled with challenges and uncertainties, but as long as we faced them together, with honesty, forgiveness, and a deepened understanding of each other, I knew that we could weather any storm. As the night wore on, we talked late into the evening, sharing our hopes and fears, dreams and aspirations for the years ahead. It was a conversation filled with laughter and tears, moments of vulnerability and profound connection. Through it all, we found solace in each other's presence, a testament to the resilience of our love and the strength of our commitment to rebuilding what had once been broken. And as we retired to bed that night, wrapped in each other's arms beneath the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the cabin window, I knew that we had come full circle, a journey of forgiveness, redemption, and the enduring power of love. Despite the progress we had made in rebuilding our marriage, the shadows of our past still haunted us. As weeks turned into months, subtle cracks began to appear in the fragile facade of our renewed intimacy. Misunderstandings that once seemed insignificant now festered beneath the surface, threatening to unravel the delicate threads holding us together. One evening, after a particularly heated argument that left us both raw and emotionally exhausted, Kate suggested something that I had been reluctant to consider: seeking help from a professional. The idea of airing our grievances to a stranger felt daunting, a stark admission that perhaps our efforts to mend our relationship had reached an impasse. Reluctantly, I agreed, realizing that our love alone might not be enough to navigate the complexities of our shared history and the wounds that still lingered. Together, we researched local therapists, eventually settling on Dr. Rebecca Hayes, a seasoned psychologist known for her compassionate approach to marital counseling. The day of our first appointment arrived with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. The waiting room of Dr. Hayes' office was quiet and serene, decorated with calming colors and soft lighting that belied the turmoil simmering within us. Kate held my hand tightly, her nerves palpable against my own. When Dr. Hayes welcomed us into her office, her warm smile and gentle demeanor immediately put us at ease. We sat across from her, hesitating at first, unsure of where to begin. But as Dr. Hayes guided us through our initial session, encouraging us to share our perspectives and feelings openly, the floodgates of pent-up emotions began to open. Kate spoke first, her voice wavering as she recounted the events that had led us to seek counseling. She spoke of her betrayal, her guilt, and her desperate desire to make amends. I listened, my heart heavy with the weight of her words, but also with a glimmer of hope that perhaps, with Dr. Hayes' guidance, we could find a way forward. As I shared my own struggles and insecurities, Dr. Hayes nodded empathetically, offering insights and gentle prompts that encouraged us to delve deeper into the underlying issues that had strained our marriage. It was a cathartic experience, to lay bare our vulnerabilities in a safe space where judgment was replaced by understanding. In the weeks that followed, we attended regular sessions with Dr. Hayes, each one bringing us closer to a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other. We learned new communication skills, practiced empathy and active listening, and gradually began to unravel the tangled emotions that had kept us at odds. Through it all, Dr. Hayes remained a steady presence, a beacon of hope in our darkest moments, guiding us towards reconciliation and healing. Together, we confronted our fears and insecurities, challenged our assumptions, and rediscovered the love that had once bound us together. And as we sat in Dr. Hayes' office one afternoon, hand in hand, reflecting on how far we had come, I knew that seeking help had been the best decision we could have made. Our journey was far from over, but with Dr. Hayes' guidance and our renewed commitment to each other, I felt a renewed sense of optimism for our future, a future shaped by forgiveness, understanding, and the unwavering belief that love, when nurtured and cherished, has the power to overcome even the deepest wounds. As our sessions with Dr. Hayes continued, she gently broached the idea of taking a trip together, a suggestion aimed at fostering deeper connection and creating new memories outside the confines of our everyday lives. At first, the thought of embarking on a journey felt daunting, a test of our newfound stability and trust. Yet, as we mulled over Dr. Hayes' advice, the idea began to take root, a seed of hope amidst the complexities of our healing journey. After much deliberation, Kate and I settled on a coastal town several hours away, a place neither of us had visited before, yet one that promised tranquility and a fresh perspective. We booked a quaint bed and breakfast overlooking the ocean, where the rhythmic crash of waves against the shore welcomed us upon arrival. The first morning dawned with a soft glow over the horizon, casting hues of pink and gold across the water. Kate and I stood hand in hand on the balcony of our room, savoring the serenity of the moment and the promise of a new beginning. "I'm glad we decided to do this," Kate murmured, her voice carrying a mixture of relief and anticipation. I nodded, unable to suppress a smile. "Me too." Our days unfolded leisurely, filled with explorations of the town's charming streets, leisurely walks along the sandy shoreline, and quiet moments of reflection shared over meals at quaint seaside cafes. With each passing hour, the walls that had once divided us melted away, replaced by a renewed sense of closeness and understanding. One afternoon, we stumbled upon a secluded cove tucked away from the bustle of tourists, a hidden gem known only to locals. Kate and I settled on a patch of sun-warmed sand, the gentle breeze carrying the scent of salt water and adventure. "This place is magical," Kate remarked softly, her eyes tracing the arc of seagulls soaring overhead. I nodded in agreement, feeling a sense of peace settle over us like a comforting embrace. "It really is." As the hours stretched into days, we shared laughter and quiet conversations, rekindling the spark of companionship that had drawn us together so many years ago. We talked about our dreams for the future, our hopes for our family, and the lessons we had learned along the tumultuous path of our marriage. One evening, as we sat on the balcony, watching the sun dip below the horizon in a blaze of fiery colors, Kate reached for my hand, her touch a silent affirmation of the love that had withstood the tests of time and tribulation. "I love you, Jack," she whispered, her voice filled with an earnestness that echoed my own sentiments. Tears welled up in my eyes as I turned to her, overwhelmed by the depth of emotion that bound us together. "I love you too, Kate, more than words can say." In that moment, beneath the vast expanse of the evening sky and the soothing rhythm of the ocean song, I knew that our journey was far from over. But as long as we faced the future together, with courage, compassion, and a renewed sense of wonder, I was certain that we could weather any storm that lay ahead. And as we embraced on that balcony, our hearts beating in sync with the ebb and flow of the tide, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the healing power of love, for the wisdom of seeking help when we needed it most, and for the promise of a future filled with endless possibilities. As our coastal retreat unfolded, Kate and I found ourselves immersed in a world where time seemed to slow down, allowing space for healing and renewal. Each day brought new discoveries and shared experiences that deepened our bond, forging a path towards reconciliation and a brighter future together. One morning, we decided to explore a nearby hiking trail that wound through a dense forest, its earthy scent mingling with the crisp air of early morning. The canopy of trees overhead filtered the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor, creating a serene backdrop for our journey. "This trail is beautiful," Kate remarked, her voice filled with wonder as we navigated the winding path. I nodded in agreement, feeling a sense of contentment settle over us. "It's peaceful here." As we walked side by side, our conversation ebbed and flowed like the gentle rhythm of the waves we had left behind. We spoke of our hopes and fears, our aspirations and dreams for the future, a future that now seemed filled with possibilities we had once feared were lost. Along the way, we paused to admire wildflowers in bloom, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the muted greens of the forest. Kate bent down to touch a delicate petal, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "It's like they're reaching towards the sun," she observed softly, her gaze thoughtful. I watched her, struck once again by the resilience and grace that had drawn me to her so many years ago. "Just like us," I replied quietly, reaching for the light. Our hike continued for hours, each step bringing us closer to a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other. We shared stories from our past, moments of joy and sorrow that had shaped us into the people we were today. With each revelation, the walls that had once divided us crumbled further, replaced by a renewed sense of intimacy and acceptance. That evening, as we returned to our cozy bed and breakfast, the setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, a breathtaking reminder of the beauty that surrounded us. We settled into a comfortable silence on the balcony, the sounds of evening birdsong and distant waves providing a soothing backdrop to our thoughts. "I never want this to end," Kate murmured, breaking the quiet reverie that had settled between us. I turned to her, my heart swelling with love and gratitude. "Neither do I." In that moment, beneath the fading light of day and the promise of a starlit night ahead, I knew that our journey had become more than just a retreat. It had become a testament to the resilience of love and the power of forgiveness. We had faced our demons, confronted our fears, and emerged stronger, together. As we embraced on that balcony, the cool evening air wrapping around us like a comforting blanket, I felt a profound sense of peace. Our path forward was clear, illuminated by the shared hope and determination that had guided us through the darkest days of our marriage. And as we gazed up at the twinkling stars overhead, I knew that our journey was far from over. But as long as we walked it hand in hand, with hearts open to the beauty and challenges that lay ahead, I was certain that we could weather any storm that came our way. As we returned from our transformative vacation, the familiar routines of daily life welcomed us back with a sense of grounding and comfort. Yet everything seemed imbued with a newfound appreciation and resilience that stemmed from our shared journey of healing and renewal. Back home, we seamlessly integrated the lessons learned and the insights gained from our time away. Our mornings began with quiet moments of reflection over steaming cups of coffee, where we discussed our intentions for the day ahead and reaffirmed our commitment to each other. Kate threw herself into her work with renewed passion and purpose, her dedication to her career serving as a source of inspiration for us both. I found solace in my own pursuits, whether it was pursuing hobbies that had fallen by the wayside or volunteering in our community, fostering a sense of fulfillment and connection. Together, we navigated the ebbs and flows of daily life with a sense of grace and understanding that had eluded us in the past. We made time for regular walks in the park, where the changing seasons mirrored the evolving seasons of our relationship, each one bringing its own beauty and lessons. Our evenings were spent cooking meals together, the comforting aroma of home-cooked food filling our kitchen and hearts with warmth. We shared stories from our day, finding laughter in the mundane and strength in the ordinary moments that bound us together. Occasionally, We revisited Dr. Hayes for check-ins, a reminder of the progress we had made and a chance to address any lingering doubts or insecurities. With her guidance, we continued to deepen our communication and strengthen our emotional connection, ensuring that our journey of growth and healing remained a priority. As we settled into a new rhythm of life, the scars of our past gradually faded into memories, lessons learned rather than burdens carried. We continued our sessions with Dr. Hayes, drawing on the tools and insights we had gained to navigate the inevitable challenges that arose. One evening, as we sat in our living room, savoring the simple joy of being together, Kate turned to me with a smile that lit up her eyes. "Do you remember where we were a year ago?" she asked softly. I nodded, a fondness tinged with relief washing over me. "It feels like a lifetime ago." Kate reached for my hand, intertwining her fingers with mine. "I'm grateful for this second chance, Jack. For us." Her words echoed my own sentiments as I squeezed her hand gently. "So am I, Kate, more than words can express." In the weeks and months that followed, we continued to nurture our relationship with intention and care. We made time for regular date nights, where laughter and shared memories replaced the weight of past grievances. We explored new hobbies together, finding joy in the simple pleasures of cooking meals side by side, or taking leisurely walks in the park. Our communication had evolved into a seamless dance of honesty and vulnerability, where words flowed freely and fears were met with understanding rather than judgment. We celebrated each other's successes and supported each other through moments of doubt, knowing that our bond was stronger for having weathered the storms of our past. One sunny afternoon, as we sat on the balcony of our home, the warmth of the sun on our faces and the scent of blooming flowers in the air, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this moment. The road had been winding and at times treacherous, but with each step forward, we had grown closer, more resilient, and more deeply in love. "I love you, Jack," Kate whispered, her voice filled with a tenderness that never failed to stir my heart. "I love you too, Kate," I replied, pulling her into my arms. "Always." And as we embraced beneath the expansive sky, the echoes of our past mistakes faded into the background, replaced by a shared vision of the future, a future filled with hope, laughter, and the unwavering belief that love, when nurtured with patience and understanding, has the power to heal even the deepest wounds.